Why hurting a dark chosen one backfires in the worst way. There's a force in the universe that most people fear without understanding, and yet they still try to play with it. That force is not thunder, not fire, not lightning. It's not karma in the way you've been taught. It's not punishment from the skies. It's something much more immediate, much more terrifying in its silence, and far more precise in its consequences. That force lives inside the ones we often overlook, reject, mock, or try to destroy. It lives in the so-called broken, the misunderstood, the feared. It lives in the dark chosen ones. And hurting one, especially without understanding who or what you're dealing with, doesn't just come back to haunt you. It backfires in the worst way imaginable. Not always immediately, not always dramatically, but always with precision. Because harming a dark chosen one sets off a chain reaction in the spiritual realm that cannot be reversed until it teaches its lesson. Now, let's be clear. A dark chosen one is not someone who is evil. That's a shallow misunderstanding. A dark chosen one is someone who has walked through the deepest, most unbearable layers of human suffering, not by accident, but by divine assignment. They have been through the shadows not once, but repeatedly. They have suffered betrayals that shattered their souls, endured spiritual warfare that would make others lose their minds, and carried pain so ancient it didn't even begin in this life. And yet they're still here, breathing, watching, becoming. Every scar a symbol, every breakdown a mutation, every silence a preparation. But here's the thing most people don't understand. They didn't go through all that just to survive. They went through it to become a mirror, a living reflection of what is true, what is hidden, and what is sacred.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
So when you hurt one of these beings, when you lie to them, betray them, manipulate them, use them, or mock them, you're not just hurting a person. You're activating a cosmic law. You're inviting a collapse of energies that were designed to protect that soul at all costs. Not because they are above others, but because they are guardians of frequency. They are carriers of divine codes that are not yet understood by the masses. Codes of truth, shadow work, radical accountability, and soul evolution. Their lives are not easy. Their path is not glamorous. But their presence changes everything in their environment, even when they say nothing, even when they're quiet, especially when they're quiet. And this is where it backfires. You see, when someone hurts a dark chosen one, the universe doesn't respond with rage. It responds with rebalancing. It begins to unravel the energies that were out of alignment. And the first place it starts is with the one who caused the harm, not out of vengeance, out of necessity. Because the dark chosen one has already paid in advance for their power. They've already suffered in silence. They've already walked through fire that no one saw. So when someone adds to that suffering consciously or unconsciously, it doesn't just hurt their feelings. It breaks a universal agreement. It disrupts a sacred contract. And the universe responds like a deeply intelligent organism, cutting off access, rerouting blessings, closing doors, and isolating the offender until they confront the truth of what they did. Have you ever wondered why some people's lives suddenly fall apart after they betray a certain person? Why they lose opportunities, relationships, health, or peace without any obvious reason? They'll blame the economy. They'll blame their ex. They'll blame bad luck. But the truth is they messed with something sacred thinking it was ordinary. They mishandled a soul that was sent here for a mission, not knowing that mission was protected by spiritual law. And that's the mistake. Thinking they were just playing a game, not realizing they were touching a flame that doesn't burn immediately, but eventually consumes everything out of alignment. Now, I know this may sound dramatic to some, but if you've ever been a dark chosen one, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've seen people betray you, then spiral. You've watched those who slandered you fall into chaos. You've felt the strange guilt of being the one they hurt, but also the one whose silence triggered their unraveling. And you didn't curse them. You didn't seek revenge. You let it be. Because deep down, you understood something most people don't. You are not to be played with, not because you're better, but because you were born with fire in your bones and God in your DNA. But here's the twist. This isn't about ego. This isn't about walking around with a superiority complex. This is about responsibility, because the chosen ones, especially the dark ones, are not only protected by the universe, they're also held to a higher standard. Why? Because the rage they carry, if unleashed unconsciously, can destroy. The truth they speak, if weaponized, can cut too deep. The energy they hold, if not grounded, can implode. So they are trained in silence. They are broken down in isolation. They are refined by pain. Not because they are cursed, but because they are being trusted with power that others cannot yet carry. So let me ask you something that might hit you harder than expected. Have you ever hurt someone who was more sacred than you realized? Have you ever dismissed someone's pain, played with someone's heart, gossiped about someone's journey, only to find your own path suddenly filled with blocks that made no sense? What if that wasn't karma in the usual sense, but a spiritual alert system kicking in, telling the universe, this person just interfered with a soul that was on divine assignment? You don't have to believe it, but look around. Patterns don't lie. And if you are a dark chosen one, if your life has been marked by pain, rebirth, isolation, and deep inner knowing, then hear this. You do not need to prove your worth to anyone. Your presence alone is a transmission. Your silence is a prayer. Your survival is a prophecy. And those who hurt you will not be punished by your hands, but by the very universal intelligence that sent you here. Not because you're a victim, but because you are evidence. Your pain has been noted, your path has been seen, and the universe is not blind. The mirror effect, how hurting a dark chosen one unleashes spiritual consequences that can't be escaped. There's a rare and terrifying law of energy that activates the moment someone harms a dark chosen one. It's not vengeance, it's mirroring. The universe doesn't come for revenge, it comes for reflection. And when that mirror turns on, it doesn't show a distorted version of events. It shows the exact vibration that was sent out. The emotion, the intention, the frequency behind the betrayal, it all comes back home, multiplied. Not as a punishment, but as a lesson. Because the universe doesn't just want to balance the scales. It wants to wake people up. When you hurt a dark chosen one, what you're doing is trying to dim a light that was already forged in shadow. You're not just hurting a person, you're attempting to distort a frequency that has already survived its own destruction. And that's why the mirror is so brutal. Because dark chosen ones hold a kind of spiritual gravity. They don't just reflect your actions, they amplify their consequences. Not because they want to, but because they embody truth. And truth doesn't play favorites. It doesn't bend to ego. It simply shows you what you are. This is where so many people fall apart after hurting someone like this. They don't understand why everything starts crumbling, why they feel haunted, why their peace disappears. But if they look deeper, they'd see something far more intimate than karma. They'd see the mirror effect. They'd see that every wound they inflicted is now echoing through their own life, that every lie they spoke now distorts their own perception, that every ounce of cruelty they poured into someone else has become a poison in their own field. Because when you harm someone who carries shadow-anchored light, the universe ensures that you meet your own shadow face to face. And it's not immediate. That's the most dangerous part. It's not like touching fire and getting burned right away. It's slower, subtle. It starts with small things going wrong, miscommunications, delays, emotional instability. The world stops flowing like it used to. And then it gets deeper. People turn on them. Business deals evaporate. Relationships unravel. They start to feel like they're being watched, not by someone, but by something. A force they can't name. A presence that doesn't speak, only reflects. And in that reflection, they begin to unravel, not because they are cursed, but because they ignored a sacred boundary. Dark chosen ones don't retaliate. They don't need to. Their field does the work. Their energy holds memory. And that memory is sacred. So when someone tries to twist it, break it, or violate it, the distortion bounces back. Not because the chosen one wished it so, but because the universe can't allow that kind of interference to go unchecked. It's too dangerous, not just for the chosen one, but for the balance of the energetic ecosystem they're a part of. Have you ever wondered why some people's lives turn into a long, slow erosion after they do something cruel to someone who didn't deserve it? Why they can't explain the anxiety, the stagnation, the sense of drowning in their own mind? It's not guilt. It's the mirror. It's the consequence of violating a soul contract they weren't even aware existed. And the only way out of that spiral is radical accountability. Not apologies, not spiritual bypassing. Truth. Full truth. Owning the pain they caused. Facing the parts of themselves that enjoyed causing it. And most of all, learning from it. Because here's the twist. The mirror doesn't just reflect pain. It also reflects potential. If the one who caused harm is willing to face themselves fully, they can transform. They can evolve. They can even become protectors of the very energy they once tried to destroy. But that path requires humility on a level most egos can stomach. It requires going into their own darkness not to escape punishment, but to become someone new. And if they don't, the mirror continues. It gets louder. It starts to affect health, finances, family. The spiritual realm begins to close certain doors not as revenge, but as a message. You went against a divine current. And until you realign, you will feel resistance in every direction. Dark chosen ones often feel the ripple of this without ever needing to speak a word. They walk through life with a kind of quiet justice field surrounding them, not because they want anyone to suffer, but because they've earned a level of protection that cannot be revoked. Their lives are not easy. Their missions are not small, so the universe grants them a kind of sacred shield, and anyone who tries to pierce it without understanding what they're doing ends up facing a version of themselves they never wanted to meet. So let me ask you a question that could change everything. What if the worst things happening in your life right now are not random but reflections? What if the resistance you're facing is the echo of someone else's pain that you haven't yet acknowledged? What if the energy you sent out is now sitting silently in front of you, waiting to see if you'll recognize it? The mirror doesn't lie, it only reflects. And once it begins, there's no escaping it. The spiritual trapdoor, why mocking, betraying, or abandoning a dark chosen one opens a portal to self-destruction. There's a moment, a seemingly harmless choice when someone mocks, betrays, or abandons a dark chosen one. On the surface, it looks like just another act of ego, just another human flaw. But beneath that surface, something ancient cracks open. A door. A spiritual trapdoor that most people don't even know exists. And the moment it's opened, reality begins to shift, not just for the one who committed the harm, but for everything they're connected to. Relationships, energy, opportunities, even their sense of self. It all begins to unravel, not because the dark chosen one retaliated, but because the universe has mechanisms of accountability that move in silence, and that door was never meant to be touched. You see, dark chosen ones are not here to play small. They are not here to be liked. They are here to catalyze, to initiate, to reveal what's hidden in the collective. Their presence alone awakens deep truths in others, truths that many are not ready to face. And when someone, whether out of fear, pride, or ignorance, tries to silence, humiliate, or exile the presence, it sends a message to the spiritual realm: I reject this light because it exposes my shadow. And that declaration is what triggers the trapdoor. Because in that moment, the universe stops protecting the illusion that person has been hiding behind. It removes the veil, and everything they've built on falsehood begins to collapse. It starts subtly. People stop responding to them with the same warmth. They lose the respect of those they once influenced. Luck turns into delay. Clarity turns into confusion. They feel stuck and can't explain why. It's like they're walking through molasses, and every attempt to climb out only sinks them deeper. This is not coincidence. This is energetic consequence. Because to mock a dark chosen one is to mock a soul that was forged in sacred fire. To betray them is to betray a divine assignment. To abandon them is to abandon the part of yourself that was meant to evolve through their presence. Why is it so serious? Because dark chosen ones carry not just wisdom but activation codes. Being near them even in conflict triggers transformation. Their love can heal you, but their pain can awaken your own. Their presence is catalytic by nature. So when someone turns against them, they're not just turning away from a person. They're turning away from the exact transformation their soul was asking for. And the universe doesn't let that kind of avoidance slide without consequence. Because spiritual growth is not optional when you're in the presence of a chosen one. It's demanded. And when that demand is rejected, the energy implodes inward. The very light that could have expanded you now becomes a mirror that destroys your illusions. You've probably seen it. Maybe you've lived it. Someone walks away from a powerful soul, claiming they were too intense, too emotional, too much. And afterwards, instead of peace, they descend into chaos. Their life doesn't get lighter, it gets heavier. Why? Because they didn't leave with gratitude. They left with judgment. They didn't exit with reverence. They exited with ego, and the trapdoor caught them, not out of cruelty, but out of design. You cannot mock the sacred and expect your life to remain untouched. You cannot betray someone who was sent to stretch your soul and expect to flourish. You cannot abandon someone carrying divine codes and expect your own mission to stay intact. The soul knows. Even if the mind denies, the soul remembers who they were to you. And if you reject them before their work in your life is complete, the lessons come harder, colder, and lonelier. Because the universe will now have to teach you what that chosen one was sent to teach you, with or without them. The saddest part: most people never realize what they've done. They blame everything else. They think God is punishing them. They think they're under attack. But the truth is far simpler and far more personal. They triggered a trapdoor by dishonoring a sacred presence in their life, by treating a soul that was meant to be a bridge as if they were a burden. And now they must walk the long road back, not because they are unworthy, but because they turned away from the very medicine that was sent to save them. So ask yourself, have I ever walked away from someone who was sent to awaken me, not realizing the cost? Have I ever tried to diminish someone whose only mistake was being too real for my comfort? Have I ever made an enemy out of someone my soul once called teacher? And if the answer is yes, then hear this: it's not too late. The trapdoor is not eternal. It's a redirection, a sacred stop, a demand for realignment. The way back begins with honesty, with humility, with seeing the one you hurt not as an enemy of your peace, but as a mirror of your resistance. And when you own that truly and fully, the door begins to close. Not to trap you, but to return you, to bring you back to the path you walked away from. Dark chosen ones don't hold grudges. They hold truth. And that truth, when met with reverence, can still heal the very wound it once exposed. But only if you're willing to see them not as a mistake, but as a message. The unseen protection, How the universe avenges the dark chosen one without them lifting a finger. There is a sacred intelligence woven into the fabric of this universe, one that most people never truly experience because they live too far from truth. But for those who carry truth in their eyes and fire in their bones, this intelligence reveals itself in quiet, devastating precision. The dark chosen ones don't need to seek revenge. They don't have to plot, scream, or prove anything, because the universe itself becomes their weapon, their witness, and their wall of protection. Not because they are better than anyone else, but because they are entrusted with a calling too important to be left unguarded. These are the souls who have walked through the kind of pain that could kill the average spirit. They've been betrayed in ways that shattered their inner worlds. They've been abandoned at their lowest, mocked while they bled, and silenced while they screamed internally for anyone to just see them. And yet they kept going, not because they had strength, but because strength had them. They were pulled forward by something deeper than willpower, a sacred assignment that whispered, "You're not done yet." And because they kept going, because they didn't turn their pain into poison, they activated a level of divine protection that doesn't shout, it moves in silence. It rearranges realities. It removes people without warning. It causes betrayals to loop back onto the betrayer. It makes sure that lies collapse under their own weight. And it does it all without the chosen one having to lift a finger. That's the power of the unseen. That's the force that surrounds a soul who has agreed to carry light through darkness. When someone harms one of these souls, they may think they've won. They may even celebrate it, laugh about it, feel powerful. But what they don't see is the clock starting, the energetic countdown, a silent ripple that begins to move through their life, disrupting everything built on illusion. And it doesn't stop until balance is restored. Not because the chosen one asked for it, not because they cursed anyone, but because the universe has records and nothing is ever lost. Every action, every intention, every vibration is noted. And when the chosen one is harmed, that record is reviewed. What happens next is not always loud. Sometimes it looks like an emotional breakdown that no one can explain. Sometimes it's a series of failures, a sudden illness, a collapse of relationships. Other times, it's just a heavy silence, a void that follows the offender wherever they go. They try to fill it with distractions, with success, with noise. But it doesn't leave. Because it's not just punishment. It's a summoning, a call for them to face what they did. And until they do, the silence stays. Meanwhile, the dark chosen one continues to rise, slowly, quietly, authentically. Not because of revenge, but because of alignment. The universe opens doors for them that no man can shut. It sends allies when they least expect it. It clears paths that were once blocked. And it does this not because they are perfect, but because they remain true. They didn't let the betrayal turn them bitter. They didn't stop showing up. They didn't curse the world, even when the world spit on them. And that integrity becomes their armor. Have you ever wondered why certain people seem untouchable, even after being torn apart by life? Why some souls keep getting back up, not with arrogance, but with this sacred calm in their eyes? It's not luck. It's not delusion. It's divine protection. It's the result of being chosen not for ease, but for impact. And the universe protects impact. It protects purpose. It protects those who carry light into places most people run from. So if you've hurt a dark chosen one, whether through betrayal, mockery, abandonment, or manipulation, know this: they don't need to fight you. They never did. Because what you did wasn't just personal, it was spiritual interference. And the universe will correct it, with or without their involvement. The best thing you can do is take responsibility not for their sake, but for your own. Because every day you delay the truth, the silence grows. And the silence does not forget. And if you are a dark chosen one, Let this be your reminder: you are protected in ways you cannot yet see. You are not alone, even when it feels like no one understands you. You don't have to argue with those who misrepresent your heart. Stay aligned. Stay grounded. Keep walking. Because the very forces that tried to break you will one day realize they were only sharpening the blade of your mission. And those who harmed you, they'll come face to face with what they did by watching their own lives echo back the very energy they sent. You don't need to seek justice. You are the justice. And the universe never misses